know, if you've been with us either online in person, we have begun a journey through relationships. Everybody say relationships. And how many of us know that God's will for us in our relationships is success? God's will for our relationships is that they be life-giving, not taking. God's will for our relationships is that they be vibrant and healthy and thriving. Now that does not mean that it goes without struggle and the challenge. Everything that is worth anything is not easy. And so if we are expecting our relationships to just be a piece of cake, well, we have another thing coming. And we're going to be let down and disappointed greatly because how many of us know, how many of us are in relationships that are taking a little bit of work, whether it's friendships, family, dating, spouse. Hello. And only the strong survive, baby. Because if you ain't willing to put in the work, God ain't going to do it for you. He'll give you what you need to do it. You have to put in the work and the effort yourself. So God put it on our hearts, on my heart, to start a series on relationships. Last week was the first week, and we talked about the very fundamentals, the basics, the foundations of all healthy, godly relationships. And today, we are in for a treat because I believe God has given us something special. This is a huge revelation of what we're going to be talking about. Today, I'm preaching to you about, just praying. I can't tell you yet. I'm going to open up the Word, and we're going to read the Scripture. I hope you didn't put it up there. We're going to read the Scripture first, and then I'm going to let you know the title of the sermon because I want to keep you on edge. But I'm telling you, if you listen today, not listen to me, but I mean, if you just open your ears to what God has to say through this message, I promise you, it's going to be a lot more easier said than done. But if you at least take steps in this direction, you will find a lot more freedom, health, success, and good things in your relationships with you, with others, and with God. So let's read. We're in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. And we're going to learn today about an old man named Naaman. Everybody say Naaman. Naaman. We're going to learn about Naaman and his issue and what his relational issue was that many of us deal with. And it's quite funny what happens. So let's read. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor. Because of him, by the Lord, or because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord. Thus and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. So Naaman here, the great man that he wasn't an Israelite, so he didn't fully understand how God's people operated, and he didn't understand here that he expected that he was going to have to pay for this healing of his leprosy. And so he gets his money and he does that. So he keeps on. And in verse 6, and he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, you know that I have sent to you Naaman my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy." And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me." But when Elisha, everybody say Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel." So basically Elisha saying to the king, "No big deal. I know you're not the one who can heal him. Don't sweat it. I'm the one who can do this. Send him to me, and I'll bring forth the healing through God's power." So Naaman came with his horses, verse 9, and chariots, and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." Stop right there. We're going to stop right there. Today I want to talk to you about the subject, keep your expectations in check. Everybody say, keep My expectations in check. Today, we have to learn and we have to hear from God on how we can deal with expectations in relationships. Expectations in relationships are everywhere. They invade every area of your relationships. And most of the time, many of the times, our expectations are not met. And how about that? We have an expectation that so-and-so, my wife, is going to do a certain thing or be a certain way. I have an expectation that my family, my parents are going to treat me a certain way or do this thing, and they don't do it. And what happens? My expectation is not met. And you know what is the response to most of us when our expectations are not being met? What happens, especially in relationships? If you expect your friend, your girlfriend, to be there right at 3 o'clock like she said and she wasn't, that face you get, you know, where you're trying to hide it, like you're not mad or bitter, like you're not like, oh my gosh, how could she? And your nostrils flare open and you're just trying to, I'm fine, it's okay. But really, you're upset and you're mad because your expectation wasn't met. You had an expectation of someone doing something a certain way and they didn't do it and you didn't like it. And you know what's at the root of our expectational problems when we get upset? Pride, a lot of the times, is at the root of that. Because we're not okay with people when they don't meet our standard. See, we have this unspoken standard that we believe people should meet in our lives. We believe that people should be perfect. But isn't it interesting how we somehow have the expectation that others are to be perfect and they should never make a mistake, but when it comes to us, we should have grace and people should be patient with us because after all, I'm just a human and I'm just a sinner saved by grace and, you know, I need your grace and your patience. But hey, how dare you? Remember that story in the Gospels when Jesus told a parable about the person who was forgiven? Well, there's a couple of them, but one of them, the guy had owed money and his debt was forgiven. And he was just hey, praise God, but then guess what happened? Somebody owed him a debt, and he went out and found that guy and said, hey, give me what you owe me. See, there's this expectation that others, and that even God is supposed to be a certain way toward us, but we don't have that same expectation for us and others. Unmet expectations is a huge relational issue. I can tell you this, that if there is anger, bitterness, resentment, sorrow, pain in your relationships, a lot of that is coming from your expectations that you have had for that person, whether it's a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a teammate, a coach, a teacher, parent, spouse, it doesn't really matter, not being met. And we've all felt the pain of having this high hope that someone would do a certain thing, or would live a certain way, or would treat us a certain way, or would do something for us, and then it not happening. And then we being let down and disappointed. Unmet expectations are the cause of a lot of relational issues. And I believe that God's word for us today is going to show us how to overcome the power of the disappointment that comes when our expectations are not met. Because God's word and the truth is that expectations in and of themselves are not a bad thing. We all naturally just have expectations for ourselves, for others, and even for God. And to expect something of myself is not a problem. Actually, there are many positive expectations we can have, starting with ourselves. At least me, I expect myself to get up out of bed in the morning and to take care of the things that I need to take care of. I expect myself to take care of my health because God has given my body to me to steward and to take care of. I expect myself to be passionate about the things that I'm passionate. There are good expectations to have, even with others. I should expect my spouse to not cheat on me. Hello, she committed to me, right? Imagine a life without any hopes or expectations. Anything goes. Well, it's okay, it doesn't matter. Well, no, that's not what God is saying. And that's not what the problem in relationship. The problem is when our expectations get out of control. And they start to become our reality. Where we begin to live in our expectation in the false reality of what we're expecting from people instead of living in the reality. And because we're expecting this, we're so caught up in what we expected that when it doesn't happen, we don't know what to do. And a lot of time anger sets in, rage, bitterness, and silent treatment. We withhold love. And it's not because we're such bad people and we're such beasts, but it's actually because we've been hurt. But we don't know how to handle that hurt when it comes. We don't know how to communicate it to the other person when we have that expectation not met, and to let them know. You know that many of our expectations, I would probably say the majority of our expectations are unspoken. We don't even speak them. They're just there. And that's, come on, we are jacked up. How are we going to expect someone to do something and we've never even told them that we expect them to do it? I mean, come on. At least, have we ever considered communicating our expectations to one another? Now here, you might be wondering why I chose this passage of scripture. It doesn't quite make sense. Well, Naaman was a great man. And Naaman was a commander of an army. And because of Naaman's background, how he grew up, who he grew up with, his experiences, he had certain expectations ingrained in his mind about how things would go. And I wonder if because of his status as a great man in Syria, I wonder if he had the expectation that his healing would come about a certain way, which he did. We haven't gotten to that place yet. But Naaman, the prophet of God, Elisha, he was going to heal Naaman. And Naaman was all about the healing. Well, obviously, he packed up, he took his money, and he went to go get the healing. But Elisha gave a specific way for the healing to come about. How did he tell him? Does anybody remember? He said, go and dip in the pool 7 times. Now, let's read on and see how Naaman responded to that, and then we'll continue to discover more about expectations in our relationships. So verse 10 was where Elisha said that. He said, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you'll be clean. Amen, praise God, go home. Naaman's going to be healed. No. Why? He had an expectation, and here was his expectation. The famous 2 words that we often say, put a recorder on when you're in your relationship, put a recorder on in your house with your kids, and see how many times you say these 2 words. But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, behold, I thought you were going to do it this way. But hang on, I thought you said 7 o'clock. Yeah, I did, but why aren't you here? Because I meant a.m. Oh, I was expecting you at p.m. See, expectations can even happen in these little ways where we're not even meaning to have them. It's just like, oh, let's meet at 7, okay. And someone's there at 7 a.m. and the other one's at 7 p.m. because one expected to be there at 7 a.m. and the other expectations are crazy. But look what he says. He said, I thought he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord, his God, and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Listen to Naaman's expectation. Now, folks, where in that passage did we read anybody say anything to Naaman about how the healing would come? Nowhere. But for some reason, I think it's something to do with both our fallen nature, but also our being made in the image of God. There is this standard that people automatically have. Again, it's not bad, but the fallen nature, what fallen humanity does is we distort things and things get out of control. And so our expectations, we no longer can control them. Naaman, immediately, I'm going to be healed. Oh, I bet he's going to come out with this wand and he's going to declare, thus saith the Lord, Naaman, you're healed. And that's not the way that God had his healing for him. I wonder how many of us are missing out on the blessings God has for us because of the pride of not letting go of the expectations that we had, either for others, for God, for ourselves, and we hold on to those and we have this pride and it stops us. It becomes a barrier from us experiencing the blessing of what God has for you. We can't let our unmet expectations become a blockade or a barrier for receiving what God has for us. We can't let the letdown and the disappointment of what we thought was going to happen, or what we thought they were going to do, or what we thought they were going to bring us, or look like, or talk like, or walk like, or what we thought they were going to do with their lives. We can't let the disappointment of that not happening get in the way from us seeing the blessing of what actually happened. See, expectations are not reality, because our expectations are created before something actually happens. And so if we continue to create expectations for others in our lives, that aren't necessarily real, and then especially don't communicate them, and then we could demand them, or we expect it, and we expect perfection all the time, and then they're going to do that thing, and it's not going to be done the way that you wanted it done, and you are going to be greatly disappointed. Look at Naaman's response. His emotional response, it says that he was angry, and he went away. Naaman walked away from the blessing God had for him because of the pride and because of the expectation he had of how it was going, how he wanted it to be, how he thought it was going to be, but it turned out to be something else, and he walked away. I wonder how many of us and how many people in our culture walk away from our miracle, walk away from our healing because it didn't happen the way we thought. I wonder how many of us miss out on opportunities to be blessed in our relationships because so-and-so didn't do what I thought they would. Husbands. I wonder how many husbands out there miss out on the blessing of a new experience, of a new meal, because they wanted their wife to cook them this, scrambled eggs, because they love scrambled eggs, and the wife decided to surprise them with over easy eggs, and because they had this expectation, well, I wanted scrambled eggs, and now she said, well, honey, I just wanted to make you something new this time, and he's so mad and so prideful that he says, well, no, fine, never mind then, I'm just not going to eat it. I don't know how many times I've heard that. Never mind, it's okay. Just because it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. See, we need to learn to respond to our unmet expectations in the way God would have us respond, because we are going to be let down. People are not perfect. God is not perfect. Or God is perfect. God is not, he's not going to always meet your expectations. That's what I meant to say. And either are we. We can't even meet our own. So how do we respond? Well, we can respond like Naaman did here, and we can get angry. Or we can respond to when people don't meet our expectations with humility, with worship, and with trust. How can we respond? With humility. See, we have to have a loose grip on our expectations. If I'm demanding that my wife wait on me hand and foot all the time, one, that's an unrealistic expectation. That was not her role, is not to just simply wait on me hand and foot all the time. But somehow, somewhere along the way, this expectation was created from something. Sometimes we don't even know why we have them. But when it doesn't happen, how can I respond? Humility says, you know what? I expected my spouse, I expected my girlfriend to respond to my text in 5 minutes, because many of us have that expectation that we expect somebody to respond to our text right away. But if we don't, but we don't have that rule. Why are we can look at theirs and we just read it and then put a phone down. But then we get mad when somebody don't respond to us within 5 minutes. But you know what happens? What would happen in our relationships if my wife didn't respond when I thought she would, or didn't respond the way I thought she would? How many have done this? You got a gift for somebody and you were really excited because you thought they were going to love it, and you expected them to say, oh, you created this whole response in your mind of how they were going to respond to you when you got home with the gift, and they're like, oh, thanks, or they're like, that, or that, you know, and it's like, no, and how many of us have gotten angry when they responded that way? Look. That's a risk. When you do something for someone, you're taking a risk, because you're saying, I don't know how they're going to respond to this. So if they don't accept it, it's okay. But most of us don't respond with humility, and so we damage the other person. And we bring pain into the relationship. But humility would say, ouch, Lord, that hurt. I thought they were going to love this. I wanted them to love it. I was expecting them to love it. You don't ignore the pain. You don't shove the pain away and say, that's okay. It's okay. I'm strong. They didn't like it. That doesn't work, okay? Face the facts. You always have to face the pain of being let down. That's the first step, is embracing it. And saying, you know what, God, being honest with yourself, that did hurt. And you can even communicate that to the other person. Man, that response really kind of stung, because I kind of expected you to like it. But then the next phase, the next step of that is embracing the fact of what actually did happen. And embrace the fact that, you know what, oh, they didn't like that. It's okay. You know, Lord, who am I to demand that they like all of my gifts, every single gift I give them? Who am I to demand that they like every meal that I cooked? Well, if you're going to cook a meal for somebody, you're taking a risk because they might not like it. If you're going to do anything in a relationship for anybody, you're taking a risk because the fact is that they might not want it, accept it, or do it the way you wanted them to do. Parents. We're not all parents in here. Some of us are, some watching are, and many of us will be. You know how much damage you can do when you have expectations on your children that they are going to be these perfect kids who never mess up, never do anything and make any mistakes. You put so much pressure on your kids to perform and to meet your standard of excellence, and you demand it, and then you play the withholding game when they don't do it. You sneer at them, you give them dirty looks, you say, how could you? You call them idiots, you do all sorts of things. Not because you're mean or bad, but because you're hurt. You wanted them to do this thing, but they didn't, and so you're hurt. Out of your hurt, you respond this way. But you know what? When we put these expectations, we're putting pressure on people that is not fair. God did not create your spouse, your children, your friends, your classmates, your teachers to meet every one of your needs. So if you're expecting them to make you complete, if you're expecting them to give you your identity, if you're expecting them to always make you happy, you are going to be let down. God and Him alone is made to give you your identity. God and Him alone is made to make you happy and to make you complete. No human being can do that. Where do these expectations come from? Men, where is the expectation that your wife or your girlfriend is going to be this stunning, perfect model that has no fat, that has any flaw wrong with her? And you have this image ingrained in your mind, this expectation of what marriage is going to be like, or what a relationship with a woman is going to be like, that you're going to be this ruler, and woman cooketh my dinner. Woman, I need my toes clean. Like, what? Come on. But now listen to this. Many of us have expectations and we do not know where they originate from. My question is, have we ever asked ourselves, where am I getting these expectations? And stopping and holding them and saying, wait a minute. Before all my expectations go all over the place and I start assuming that this is going to happen and assuming that they're going to do it like this and assuming that God is going to do this like this, let me just stop and say, where is this coming from? Many of our expectations come from our past and our upbringing, our experiences as we grew up, and what we observed in our homes, at our schools, in the people and places that we were regularly at. I'll give you a few examples. Why does a husband get into marriage and he have the expectation that his wife is there to serve him and wait on him hand and foot? Where do you think that might have come from? Maybe he grew up in a home where his dad was that kind of man, and his mom just shut up and she just did whatever his dad wanted and nothing else. And now he gets married, and because he's never talked about his expectations with his wife or with his fiance before they got married, or his girlfriend, he gets in and he's expecting that because it's just ingrained and it's automatic, and then it doesn't happen and he doesn't know what to do. And he gets angry and he thinks that she's out to get him. He thinks that she's doing something on purpose to smite him or to demean his manhood and his masculinity. And he's all misunderstood, and now out of his hurt, he hurts her, and now the relationship just has this constant cycle of hurt. Let down hurt. When we're let down, hurt people. When you get hurt, the automatic fleshly thing to do is that we're going to end up hurting people, and we have to learn how to respond differently. That goes, okay, where else? Where does a person get the expectation that I should just be oh, I had a good example. Let me get that back. Where does someone get the expectation, that everyone's just there to serve them, that everyone's job in life is just to do what they want them to do, and that it's all about them? Well, they grew up in a home, or they grew up with people where they got all their way all the time. And you know what? Who likes those people who are kind of spoiled, and then they just expect that someone's going to give them what they want, and when they don't, they throw a fit? You have to remember that these things are ingrained and they're at the core. They're because of how we grew up. They're because of the things we observed. Expectations can originate and can come and be birthed out of seeing a repetition of a pattern of behavior. Why do we expect the New England Patriots in the football, if you're a football person, to win all the time? Because they win all the time. So you create this expectation. And when they don't win, you're like, oh no, my world is crumbling. crush. Why do we expect certain companies or certain products, Apple, to crack out these amazing, successful devices year after year after year? Because they've done it. So it's okay that we have some of these expectations, but what is not okay is that we allow our expectations for others to get out of control, to control us, to the point where we respond like Naaman did, in anger, and we disgust. How could you? I can't believe you wouldn't do. And then we shame people because they don't meet our expectations. Relationships can ruin somebody, or relationships, well, those two. Expectations that are not met can ruin somebody's day. Last week, my wife and I, we love to, we're people who are productive, and we like to create schedules. We like to do things in our life that will promote the most growth and that give us the most ability to get done the things we want to do and to become the people God wants us to become. And so last week, we were discussing and planning out refining our schedule, our daily schedule. What time we're going to get up? What are we doing when we get up? Who's going to take care of Obadiah? What about the gym and getting some exercise in? So, I create this little plan, and I run it by Rebecca, and I say, okay, babe, how about this? We're going to get up, I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to go to the gym early, and then you're going to stay back with Obadiah and take care of him, feed him. You can get a little bit of extra sleep, just a little bit though. And I'm going to come back, and you're going to be up and with Obadiah. And you're going to be playing, or you're going to be ready, and she's going to be ready to go to the gym. And because we're going to do the alternate, where I go to the gym, she comes back, and then I take care of Obadiah. And so and she's like, okay, and I'm so excited because we have this, I'm ready, and we're gonna be productive today and this day, not that we're not other days, but we're gonna, put this in play and see how it works. So I ride the bike, I go to the gym, I do my thing, pump my iron, you can tell today I've been working out. And then I come back, and I even stop at the store to get her a little surprise that I thought she was just gonna love in the door. And these earplugs so she could swim, because she got water stuck in her ear a while ago. Anyway, so I pull up into the house on my bike, I hop out, I get into the house, and it's quiet. And I'm like, I wonder where everybody, maybe they went on a walk. Because clearly she's not sleeping, because we talked about the schedule, and I expected her to be up, and I expected her to be ready to go to the gym as soon as I walked in. And so I'm like, well, so I meander up into the bedroom, and lo and behold, there's two creatures in the bed, and one is a little baby, and the other is a blonde-haired lady that surely she looks just like my wife, and no, that couldn't be her, because I expected her to be up and ready, and I didn't even consider the fact that she's a nursing mother, and nursing mothers need extra sleep. I didn't consider the fact that she was getting sick. I didn't consider the fact that, it's only 8 o'clock. How could she break my expectation? How could? And I got her. And at first I tried not to say anything, because it's okay. She didn't meet my expectation, but it's okay. So literally I was, just going around and doing my thing. I'm like not talking to her, but she's like interacting with me, and I'm being real short with her. You know how we can do that when people don't do what don't meet our expectations? I'm like, yeah, okay. And then finally, I'm like, dang it, I have to tell her. Or she asked me or something, so I tell her, and I'm just like, babe, that really made me angry when you weren't up. You were supposed to be ready to go to the gym. And literally, it ruined that 2 hours of my morning. I couldn't even function because I had such an expectation for my wife, and I let it control the whole situation. And I was so ingrained in that reality, or that false reality, that she's going to be perfect. She's going to do this perfectly. She's going to wake up exactly on the dot when I said we should wake up. She's going to be ready at the door with her foot out the door, with her gym bag on her shoulders, ready to go. And Obadiah is going to be right here in the thing, in the bouncy, ready for me. And it didn't happen. I was so caught up in that expectation that I let it control me to the point of not being okay with the fact that it didn't happen that way. And praise God that He's taught me how to communicate. Sometimes it takes a couple hours before I get the courage to say, babe, I was let down and I was hurt. And the point of communicating your expectations, or the fact that you were hurt by the fact that it didn't get met, is not to fix them. It's just to communicate, be real and honest. That's what relationships are about. I was really let down, and that kind of bugged me. And maybe ask why. You never know. Maybe I don't know why she wasn't. But if I just start assuming things and going back to my expectation, then I'm going to hurt her too. And I did that. Expectations. Expectations. We have to have healthy ones, realistic ones. You can't expect people to be perfect. Now, Naaman, let's go back to him. Naaman had a certain expectation, and it had to do with his healing. It had to do with God wanting to bless him. But see, God says in his word, my ways are not your ways, and my thoughts are not your thoughts. Just as the heavens are above the earth, so my thoughts are beyond yours. So what God is saying here, and that's in the book of Isaiah, is that you are not going to always be able to figure me out. You will not understand why I do things a certain way. Because God does promise certain things. But usually when it comes to the how it's going to happen, he's very quiet on the how. Naaman knew he was going to be healed, but he didn't know how. And so what happens in our relationship with God and with others is if we don't get the how and all the details, we create the details ourselves. And then we're setting ourselves up to be let down and to miss out on that blessing because we had it in our minds that it was going to happen a certain way. So Naaman got angry and he walked away from his blessing. It can be compared to a blind date. Now, a blind date, imagine person A, woman A, man B, or she gets set up on a blind date. She meets a guy on eHarmony or online, or someone connects her with her, but she hasn't seen the guy in person. Now she talks to him online and they start connecting and they say, you know what, why don't we meet up? And so they make the decision that they're going to meet up for dinner sometime and get dinner and talk and see each other in person and it's going to go great and yada yada. Now, the woman has not seen him and they have not talked about their looks. So what happens is she then begins to create expectations in her mind about what he's going to look like. Oh, he's going to be tall, dark, and handsome. Oh, he's going to have a deep voice. He's going to have money. He's going to have this. And so why does she create these? We don't know, because oftentimes if those details aren't provided, we just create them ourselves because we have this hope. Oh, I bet he's going to be like this. And that's not bad as long as it doesn't control, as long as it doesn't cause her to respond in a way like Naaman. But so she then gets excited. She gets all dressed up and she goes to the restaurant. And she walks in and this gentleman greets her. Small, short guy with freckles, squeaky voice, doesn't look like he has much money. She thinks he's the waiter. He says, hey, where would you like to sit? And she says, oh, I'm waiting for someone actually before I get seated. Thanks, though, we'll let you know. And he's like trying to tell her, no. And she's like not listening because she's so caught up in her expectation of what he was going to look like and be like that she's completely disregarding this guy. She thinks he's the waiter. Oh, he's got to be. Surely he couldn't be the one that I'm dating because that's not the one that's not him. And so he's like, no. And then finally he says her name. Lady A. How do you know my name? Because I'm him. I'm the guy that we were talking on eHarmony, we were talking on Facebook, we set up a date, and she's like, no, wait, no, you're not him. No. See, the guy that I'm gonna date, he's tall, dark, and handsome. The guy that I'm gonna date, he's got a deep voice, and you have a squeaky voice. The guy that I'm gonna date knows how to dress, and you got high waters on. See, the guy, and he's like, wait, well, why did you think that? And then she's like, oh, well, I guess I don't know why I expected you to be a certain way, because we didn't talk about it. I just created these expectations, these unrealistic expectations of what you would be like in my mind, and now I see you in reality, and she has a choice. She has two choices. She can respond like Naaman did here and get angry, and she can, out of pride, walk away from a blessing. How does she know that that's not her knight in shining armor, just in disguise, and maybe his armor ain't what she thought it would look like? How does she know that that's not the guy that God wanted for her? But you see, because of our expectations, we so many times miss out on what God has for us. And this woman, out of pride, could do that. Or she could take the alternate route, and out of humility, respond out of humility, and face the facts. And say, God, he's not what I thought him to be at all. He does not look like what I thought he was going to look like. He doesn't sound like what I thought he was going to sound. None of that stuff. Nevertheless, God, you know what? I'm going to give him a shot. I'm going to give him a shot because who knows? Maybe this will be a blessing. Maybe this will be a blessing. And we have the same choices in our relationships daily. Daily, your expectations will not be met, and you have a choice to respond out of pride or humility. Pride that responds like Naaman in anger and gets bitter and withholds love. How could you not do that? I thought you were going to do. I thought. Well, it didn't happen that way. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to pout? And you might not be the one that gets angry. You might get depressed and say, woe is me. Woe is me. I wanted them to do this and they didn't do it. And you walk around and you're just depressed. I'll probably be the depressed one because I don't get angry. That's for bad people. I've noticed now that I'm married, anger's come out a lot more than I've ever thought it would. Dang it! I thought I was on the top of, I thought I was on cloud 9. Anyway, or we can learn to respond in a different way. And we can say, God, we can say to the other person, babe, hon, friend, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that you made a different meal that I didn't want. You surprised me with that. I expected it. It's okay that you didn't like my gift. It's okay that you weren't there when I expected you to be there. Can we talk about it? You know, communication goes a far way. Sit down and say, hey, let's have a conversation. Can we talk a little later when we're cooled down? When you didn't show up when you said you would, kind of let me down. Oh, I'm so sorry. I got caught up in traffic. Oh, you mean that's it? You mean you weren't intentionally saying, I'm going to try to get him and get him being backhand for this, so I'm not going to shut. See, we create all sorts of things, scenarios in our mind. Oh, I bet the reason why he didn't do that, I bet he didn't do that because, no, sorry, the traffic was bad, so I couldn't make it on time. I got a flat tire, sorry. I stopped to help somebody on the side. Sorry. We need to learn to keep our expectations in check. When they start raging up, and then all these scenarios get in, and everybody says, no, stay down. You know that game in the arcade where you're bopping all those things, and they're popping up, and you're boom, boom, boom. We need to do like that with our expectations. Wait, hey, God never said he was going to deliver me that way. God just promised me he was going to deliver me. God promised you a calling. Stop creating in your own mind what that calling is going to look like. God promised you a wife. He didn't tell you exactly what the wife was going to look like. God promised you would be financially stable one day. He didn't tell you when it was going to happen. Now with our relationship with God, it's probably even more important because many people walk away from their relationship with God because he didn't do things the way they thought he would, in the time that he thought he would, and all sorts of other things. I know many people who have stepped away from their relationship with God because they thought God would do it in this way, and he didn't. We must remind ourselves, God, your ways are beyond mine. I can't understand you. I don't know why you're doing it this way. And I did have a hope that you would do it in this time. I thought you were going to do it in a year when you told me you were going to bless me and make me successful. And it's been 20 years, and I'm still not there yet. But you know what, God? You didn't promise me a timeline. You just said you would do it. That takes a lot of humility and a lot of faith to say, God, okay, I throw my expectations out the window. Now, let's end with how Naaman, what happened after that, because God's grace is good, and he gave Naaman another opportunity to be blessed and to receive his healing. So in verse 13, after he turned away in rage, but his servants came near and said to him, My father, it is a great word that the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? He has actually said to you, wash and be clean. How has he actually said to you, wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Praise God that God sent Naaman some people were smart enough to say, Naaman, you're missing. You're going to miss out on a huge blessing. You're going to miss out on a huge opportunity if you turn this away just because it wasn't how you expected it to be. It's okay that it didn't happen that way. Embrace the fact of what is before you and in front of you. Now you can be healed. Are you willing? Are you willing to do it a different way than what you expected? Are you willing to operate in your relationship a different way than what you expected? Are you willing to be married to this person even though she's not or he's not what you expected them to be? Or are you going to walk away and say, Dad, oh well, too bad? Are you willing to do things a different way from what your expectations created? Because if you are, you're setting yourself up for blessing and success in your relationships, relationship to yourself, your relationship to God, and your relationship to others. But if you are unwilling and you hold on to those expectations and you let them control, you will not have a very successful relational life in a walk with God. People are going to let us down. God is going to let us down. And we're going to let ourselves down. But praise God that He has a plan. And like Naaman, we can always turn and go down and do it the different way. Outside, throw that expectation out the window and allow ourselves the blessing that God had for us, especially in our relationships. Let's pray.